Good evening. It is 6:37 p.m. November 8th, 2023, and the meeting of the Urban Design Commission will now come to order. May we please have a roll call?
Monica Sullivan.
Here.
Edith McKee.
Here.
Allison Gordy.
Here.
Julia Foland.
Here.
Alexandra Nanalo.
Here.
Ryan Lucas.
Here.
Trevor Strait.
Here.
Mark Cox is excused. You have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. May we get a motion to approve the minutes from October 11th, 2023? It's been moved by Commissioner Strait.
Second, Monica Sullivan.
And we have a second by Commissioner Sullivan. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
None.
I'm not hearing any. Are there any objections to the minutes being approved? I'm not hearing any. Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Do I need to read out the results? Okay. Next, we'll move on to the special order of business. Are there any disclosures this evening? Commissioner Strait?
Yeah, I'd just like to disclose the case before us today, that the office that I work in is roughly a block south of the address at this location. I don't have any special knowledge about this case or the building. I have no financial or personal interest.
Thank you for your disclosure. I don't see any conflict with you participating, and I will direct you to participate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're moving on to the consent agenda. May we have a motion to approve Resolution 2023-0098 on the consent agenda? It's been moved by Commissioner Strait. Do we have a second?
Second. Commissioner Gordy, second.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Gordy. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda for discussion or corrections? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. We don't have any unfinished business this evening, therefore we'll move on to public hearings, and I will read the public process. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Urban Design Commission at its meeting is: 1, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. 2, persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Urban Design Commission rules of procedure. Petitioners, including all his, her, their representatives, have 10 minutes. Rebuttal by the petitioner may be allowed when time has been reserved. Representatives of groups, including community councils, PTAs, etc., will have 5 minutes, and individuals will have 3 minutes. 3, when your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the commission. 4, any party of interest wishing to appeal shall first file with the planning director, within 7 days of the commission's decision, made on the record a written notice of intent to appeal in accordance with AMC 21.03.050A.4a. Commission recommendations to the Anchorage Assembly are not appealable. Following approval of the written findings of fact and decision, any party of interest may, within 20 days, file an appeal by filing a notice of appeal and paying the appeal fee and deposit in accordance with Section 21.03.050. The notice of appeal must be filed with the planning director on a form prescribed by the municipality. If the appellant is not the applicant, the appellant's notice of appeal shall include proof of service on the applicant. With respect to case 2023-0113, the petitioner is Alaska Anchorage and Arctic LLC. The request is for 2 design variances, 1 to allow building coverage to exceed the maximum lot coverage, and 2 to allow project development without the 8-foot perimeter fencing. May we please have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the JCPenney home store site, the old home store. It is a vacant warehouse. The petitioner, the owner, plans to remodel the existing building into a self-storage facility. They're asking for variances from maximum lot coverage and fence requirements for self-storage facilities. None of the state and municipal reviewing agencies object to the granting of the variance. 552 public hearing notices were mailed on October 17th. No public comments were received, and no comments were received from the provided by the Spenard Community Council. Approval criteria A is met. The intent of these 2 code provisions is to minimize the bulk of a self-storage facility and to provide buffering for neighboring properties. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow the lot coverage to be 52% because it is an existing building. The lot coverage limitation for self-storage facilities is 50% at this site. However, the underlying zoning, which is the B3 district, has no limitation on lot coverage. So the self-storage facility use specific standard is more restrictive than the underlying zoning. The second variance is to waive the requirement for an 8-foot tall site obscuring fence surrounding the entire property. The fence requirement is unnecessary because the self-storage facility will be contained within the existing building. All self-storage will be internal to the old JCPenney building. There will be not be any open storage, nor will there be multiple storage buildings on the site. The property will remain largely the same as it is today. Approval criteria B is met. The granting the variances provides more flexibility for the reuse of an existing building. Removal of portions of the existing building in order to meet the code required lot coverage limitation for self-storage, it does not further the intent of the comprehensive plan. The existing building exceeds the lot coverage for this change of use by less than 2%. The self-storage facility requirement to provide a fence would create a new wall around the property that does not currently exist. The intent of the comprehensive plan is to promote northern design principles and create more walkable community. An 8-foot tall fence like a wall around the property is not pedestrian friendly. Approval criteria C is met. These use specific standards only apply to self-storage facilities. They do not apply to other use types in commercial districts. These zoning requirements make sense in other sites, but not this one, which is simply the repurposing of an existing vacant building. Approval criteria D is met. This will not be injurious to the neighborhood. The granting the variance will not adversely affect the use of adjacent property. Approval criteria E is met. Self-storage facilities are already a permitted use in this district. Approval criteria F, it's not related to ADA accessibility or reasonable accommodation. G is met. There's no health safety issues caused by the approval of these variances. And H, this is not related to signs. So the department's recommending approval of both variances subject to approval criteria number 1 on page 5 of your packet, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? I have a question. There is an existing fence. It appears that portions of it are outside of the existing property boundaries. Do you know if the intent is to remove the fence that's outside of the existing right-of-way?
Through the chair, I don't know if the applicant has any plans for the existing fence or new fencing. I suspect that they would have to do some work on the fence. I think there's a hole through to the neighborhood to create a cut through, so it would be smart of them to create some defensible space and repair the fence. But having a trespassing fence onto neighboring property is kind of more of a, it's not the subject of this variance, and it's more of a civil matter. Yeah, it's existed in this fashion for quite a long time. Also, it'll be reviewed during the change of use building permit, so maybe they'll make them change the fence at that time.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff?
Yes, Monica Sullivan. What is up with the snow storage and like fire truck access? Does that being reviewed?
Yes, the site has non-conforming rights as a warehouse, and the lack of characteristics of use like landscaping, fencing, lighting, parking, drive aisles, pedestrian walkways and things. But depending on the total project costs, they may be required to spend 10% of the project costs towards bringing the site closer to conformity with existing code. But they are in for a change of use permit, and the fire department will look at it, the health department, state DOT, all of the disciplines in permitting will review the change of use permit.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to public testimony. However, the petitioner is not present, and we plan to continue to proceed. There is also nobody present within the auditorium to provide public testimony. Are there any people on the phone line wishing to provide public testimony? Nope. So therefore, we will open and close public testimony. The public hearing is now closed. The matter now rests with the body. We will move and vote. May we have a motion to approve both variances in case 2023-0113. It's been moved by Commissioner Straight. Mover, would you please state your motion?
Yes, I move in case 2023-0113 to approve the variances from AMC 21.05.060D, .4, .B, .IIIA from a maximum lot coverage and AMC 21.05.060D, .4, .B, .8 from having a fence for a self-storage facility in the B3 district, subject to the conditions shown on page 5 of the staff report.
Do we have a second?
Monica Sullivan, second. Oh,
It's been seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. Commissioner Straight, would you please speak to your motion?
Yes, I agree with the staff report. Going through the approval criteria, criteria A, the proposed alternative achieves the intent of the subject design standard. I believe that standard is met primarily because it's an existing building. In regards to the fence, that all the storage is going to be occurring inside the building. For criteria B, the proposed alternative achieves the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Basically, removal of portions of the existing building doesn't really match the intent of the comprehensive plan, and 8-foot tall fence-like wall around the property is not very pedestrian friendly. Criteria C, the proposed alternative results in benefits to the community that are equivalent to or better than compliance with the subject standard. I agree this is basically a repurposing of a vacant building, which is definitely beneficial. For criteria D, the variances granted will not adversely affect the use of the adjacent property. I believe the standard is met. It's not going to hurt the neighborhood around it. It's an existing building, and lack of a fence is definitely not going to be an issue as well. Criteria E, the variance if granted does not change the character and zoning district where the property is located. I believe the standard is met. Basically, it's already an existing building that is basically already 50% of the lot coverage. I don't believe the 8-foot fence is necessary in this particular application. Criteria F, criteria G, and criteria H, I don't think really apply to this situation. And so I believe the department has done a good job putting together recommendations, and I'm going to be voting for approval of the variances.
Thank you, Commissioner Straight. Commissioner Sullivan, would you like to speak to your second?
Yes, I think I intend to support the motion. I think it's great that they are reusing existing buildings. I think it's really a benefit for the community that they don't sit empty. So I intend to support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Are there any other commissioners wishing to speak to the motion and or add findings? I would like to add, I would like to speak to the motion. I intend to support. I'd like to note that 550 public hearing notices were mailed out and there were no comments received, and that the Spenard Community Council adopted a resolution of support. I'd also like to add to Standard A regarding the fence, that the fence requirement is unnecessary because the self-storage facility will be contained within the existing building, and that the property will remain largely the same as it is today. Are there any other commissioners that would like to add findings or speak to the motion? If there's no further discussion, may we have a vote on case number 2023-0113.
Ms. Nello?
Yes. And then yes on the vote. Sorry.
Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes.
Ms. Gordy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Case 2023-0113 passed with a vote of 7 in favor and 0 against. There are no appearance requests, reports, or commissioners' comments this evening, so we will move on to adjournment. Could I please get a motion to adjourn? It's been moved by Commissioner Straight. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Nallo, second.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Monica Sullivan, that's okay. I'm not sorry, that was Commissioner Nallo, but I'm fine if...
It's been seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned at 6:57 p.m.